Order. Ready? Cut. Right shoulder. Ready? Cut. Raise it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please welcome our MC, NBC4 News anchor, Millette Green.
Ready? Cut. Forward. Right. Hey. Forward. Up.
Hello, DC. You may be seated. Oh my goodness, it's so nice to be here this afternoon. The air conditioning works. It's hot outside, and we're going to have a wonderful afternoon. Let me begin by first acknowledging the men and women of our DC Fire and EMS who put their lives on the line for all of us on a daily basis. Help me thank them. The Honor Guard representing today. And then I want to thank and recognize Noah Person, who is 15 years old. He's an honor student at DC's Jackson Reed High School. Noah has been a Boy Scout since the age of 8 and is working towards becoming an Eagle Scout in the near future. Okay, Noah, from Troop 524. Okay, so I work at NBC4. I get up at 1:30 in the morning every day and I go to work. I work Wednesday through Sunday. But Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you will see me on television doing my franchise called In the Community. I do the good news in the community. The good news in the community. So if you have a good news story that impacts the community, an event, a person, an activity, hit me up, okay? NBC4 in the community at NBCUNI.com. Check me out. I'm done with the blood and guts and death and destruction. It's time to see good news, right? It's more than time. Okay, first of all, let me just establish why I am here. I am here because I am a DC native. I am a native Washingtonian. How many native Washingtonians do I have? Okay, yes. Oh, I love it. I went to school in DC. Noyes Elementary, Taft Junior High, McKinley Tech. Where my peeps? You are my people. Okay. So now that I've established that I belong on this stage, we're going to move the program along. Our gathering today marks a significant occasion. It was 161 years ago, on April 16, 1862, that slavery was abolished right here in Washington, D.C. Now, to frame the context for this history, we begin our program with an excerpt from a documentary commissioned by our mayor. Now, it's an award-winning piece produced by DC-based New Works Productions, and it chronicles the history of our city from its founding. It's titled, Becoming Douglas Commonwealth. And the scene we are about to share offers meaningful insight into the history that we are commemorating today. Let us watch.
The growing abolitionist movement makes Washington a primary target for its anti-slavery campaign. Abolitionists pressure Congress because, unlike other states, Congress had the power to end slavery in the district without state government interference. At the same time, abolitionists recognized that having slavery in the citadel of our democracy was a moral stain on our nation.
It was a national disgrace, in fact, in the capital of a nation that prided itself on being the land of the free and the home of the brave. There were auctions of enslaved people that took place from Georgetown to Southwest. It was a regular feature of the everyday economic ebb and flow of the city. And so as a result of a blizzard of petitions and memorials, local action, and we cannot forget the consistent attempts by enslaved and free African Americans for their own freedom, that of their families, and an end to enslavement. All of these forces combined to finally end slavery on April 16, 1862.
The enslaved people of Washington, D.C. became the first to be emancipated in the nation. This was a federal experiment. Abraham Lincoln was trying to figure out how to keep the loyalty of the slave-owning states that were in the Union.
So Lincoln used the Compensated Emancipation Act of 1862 to offer payment to owners of enslaved people for the loss of their human property.
When we look at, in context, D.C. emancipation led to the Emancipation Proclamation. Seeing the success of D.C. emancipation, Lincoln decided to be even bolder.
We've got a powerful history, we have a difficult history, we have a painful history, but it is history, and we must teach our history to our children, and our children must teach history to the next generation. Agreed? We can never forget. At this time, it's my pleasure to officially welcome to all of you the Secretary of State of the District of Columbia, Kimberly Bassett.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Millette. Let's give her a round of applause. It is my pleasure to welcome you to Mayor Bowser's 2023 Emancipation Full Democracy Champions Luncheon. I am so glad to see all of you. I haven't seen you in over 3 years, some of you, and this is so exciting because we're healthy, we're blessed, and DC is open. Woo! Yes, I would like to thank Senior Advisor Beverly Perry and my OS cluster, including my team, the Office of the Secretary. Thank you so much for what you do. And thank you, yes. I would also like to acknowledge the mayor's dynamic leadership team. City Administrator Kevin Donahue, as I mentioned, Senior Advisor Beverly Perry, Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage, and our new amazing Chief of Staff, Lindsay Parker, and our legal advisors who are awesome, Eugene Adams and Betsy Cavendish. Thank you so much. I'd also like to give a shout out to Chief Donnelly. Hi, Chief. Thank you so much for the honor guide today. I'd also like to thank Angela Gates. Angela, thank you so much, Events DC. I'd also like to thank the mayor's first and second cabinet. Would you all please stand? I see you out there. Thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge our members of the Council of the District of Columbia. Christine Henderson is here. Christine, yes, all right. And also our daughter of the movement, Anita Bonds. Thank you so much, Councilmember Bonds. Our gathering today is a call of action for us to defend and continue defending our DC values. To paraphrase the words of President Barack Obama, our values are our inheritance. They are what makes us who we are as people. As a proud Washingtonians, we know who we are and we know what we deserve. We are tax-paying citizens who deserve full democracy. Yes. This is why our mayor calls us together every year to renew our commitment to the ongoing work of the emancipation. In recent months, some of you may have seen a special commercial series launched by our administration featuring our mayor and City Council Chairman Phil Mendelson. And for those who have not seen it, please turn your attention to the monitors. I would ask that you please enjoy the program today, and thank you so much. We are DC. Thank you.
We are Washington, D.C., 700,000 tax-paying Americans who bear all the responsibilities of U.S. citizenship. We pay our own way, serve our country, and balance our budgets.
Unlike other Americans, Washingtonians do not enjoy full democracy, including a vote in Congress and autonomy over our local affairs.
That's why every day we work so hard to support democracy for D.C.
We will never stop working to defend our great city.
We are working together to defend D.C.
Okay, so because I can't get into the political stuff. I'm just going to talk about me. We got the political folks here to do that. But let me just tell you that my mama and daddy still live in the same house that they raised me in the Brookland community, Northeast DC near Catholic University. Thank you. My mom is 87, my dad is 92, going strong, still living independently, thank the Lord, right? But they love DC, okay? They are DC through and through. And, whenever I don't live in DC now, I would love to one day come back to the city and live. My mother lives in the same house that she bought for $42,000 back in the day. You know that was way back in the day. Because people are calling her phone every day offering her $800,000 for her house. I'm like, Mom, sell! And she's like, no, I'm going to die right here. I need this city. I love this city. And she raised me and my siblings in this city. And my first job, you know my first job. Summer youth, right? And one more little thing about that. I went to public schools. I had a brilliant education. But I understand some people like to knock public schools, and obviously we need to improve things everywhere, correct? But that job at the Environmental Policy Institute, it got me out of my Northeast DC neighborhood, and it let me see the city from a different perspective. And if you can give a child a different perspective, we can change the course of things. I know we're all going to talk about, our own things, but let me just tell you, I believe in the power of giving a child a chance to make it and thrive. That's my soapbox. I'm done. I'm moving on. We got to do greetings, y'all. Our DC Council Chair, Phil Mendelson, he couldn't be with us today. He's got an important oversight hearing So here to bring us greetings on behalf of the council is at-large member Christina Henderson. Let's give her a welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Christina Henderson, one of the at-large members of the DC Council, and on behalf of my colleagues, I would like to say Happy Emancipation Day, DC, a little bit early, but nonetheless, we are here. I'm so excited to be here today as we kick off the festivities. It's been 161 years since the Compensated Emancipation Act of 1862, which not only freed 2,989 enslaved DC residents, but also paid them $300 each. We recognize the gravity of this day and couple that with our celebration of 50 years of home rule here in the District of Columbia. We know that both of these bills had major implications for the success and for the progress of the district. 161 years after emancipation, we have learned from our past errors, we have extended humanity to all of our neighbors, and we have recognized those who have fought for our freedoms and continue to fight for our freedoms. I know Molette said she can't do the politics piece, but I can't let this moment pass. Obviously we have seen what's happened in the last couple of months in terms of the naysayers who believe that they know better than the residents of the District of Columbia. But I think we know how to govern ourselves. We are still fighting for full democracy, and we are still fighting for full statehood. Yes. I want to take this time to thank our champions for statehood as we have this conversation about Emancipation Day. You advocate, you sacrifice yourselves to lobby and support DC statehood, and you are vocal and unrelenting on behalf of the over 700,000 residents in the district who will be forever indebted to the work that you have done. And my job as a council member is a little bit easier because of your fierce determination and championing, so thank you. With that, I would just encourage folks to get involved in the activities that are planned for the weekend, the concert tomorrow, the parade that's going on, but also every chance you get and everywhere you go, remind people that the District of Columbia should be and will be the 51st state. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Henderson, for that. Okay, so I've been at work since 3:30, so it's time to eat, okay? This is dinner for me. Okay, here to offer our community prayer and grace is Rabbi Aaron Alexander, co-senior rabbi at the Adas Israel congregation, and then immediately following his prayer, we're gonna get lunch!
Good afternoon. DC is beautiful. I am honored to be here. Thank you, Mayor Bowser, for having me. Secretary of State Bassett, thank you once again for having me back. It has become, in some ways, a cliche-like platitude, the way in which we throw around variations of the quote, "The truth is, no one of us can be free until everybody is free." That one was Dr. Maya Angelou. Or, "Until we are free, we are none of us free." That's Emma Lazarus. Or, "I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own." That's Audre Lorde. The reason I believe is that it has become more platitude than piercing truth is that many of us, and I'm looking in the mirror now, I'm talking to myself, we deploy it preemptively to protect ourselves from actually confronting reality. When we claim another's bondage is our own, do we truly understand that solvable societal challenges are most often hid away rather than met with love? Can we remember that the solutions are actually as abundant as the resources with which to implement them? There is enough for all of us. When we quote Dr. Angelo, do we simultaneously recognize that emancipation is always, always just the beginning of the next chapter, not the end of the previous one? Look, I can't speak for God, nor will I try to today here, but I feel quite confident that being let out of an ugly shackle for the promise of a pretty one, that's not a divine expression of freedom. When my ancestors escaped slavery, when they left Egypt, the real work for Egypt began. The slave owners had to learn how to be free of their coercive power, luring them each and every day to enslave again. And we are still doing that work. This morning I heard a national lawmaker from a particular political party that continues to actively deny our district its agency, its voting rights. She was speaking about abortion. She said, "We have over the last 9 months not shown compassion towards women. We're not showing compassion for women." Showing? Is that what this is now? Is that what we have been reduced to? You don't show compassion, you do compassion. You legislate compassion. In 1836, on a visit to D.C., future Senator Henry Wilson of Massachusetts witnessed a slave auction, to which he later said, "I gave away all that I had to the cause of emancipation." That's how one does compassion. It comes from these hands and this heart and this wallet, and not from this, the mouth. Today is a day to actively reclaim the potent prophecy of the past. That's how we honor emancipation, by codifying more of it. A good place to start would be statehood for the District of Columbia. Okay, now I'll pray. Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, please give us the strength, the courage, the fortitude, and the self-sacrifice to make it happen. Let this meal you have graced us with be just another beginning. Amen.
Okay. So as lunch is served, we're going to keep this program moving, right? And our next presenter is one in whom we can all take great pride. She's team president of the Jack and Jill of America Eastern region, and I got to see her graduate out in New York a few weeks ago, because my daughter also graduated out with this young lady of Jack and Jill of America, which is an important organization. And she will be attending UNC Chapel Hill Honors College, wait for it, on a full academic scholarship. Ha-ha! You gotta lift our youth up so the other youth can see you too can do this. So please welcome, everyone, D.C. Youth Mayor Addison Rose, a rising superstar.
Wow, you made me sound pretty cool. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Addison Rose, and I currently serve as the youth mayor of Washington, D.C. Before I begin, I'd like to take the time to thank Secretary Bassett and Mayor Bowser for inviting me to be here this afternoon. Today, I am here to speak to you about the importance of D.C. statehood. Not just that, but the ways in which it affects our youth, the future. DC citizens pay the most in federal taxes per capita in the nation, and even have a higher population than states like Vermont and Wyoming, yet for some reason, people believe our voices don't matter. Time and time again, DC residents are treated like second-class citizens in a country whose government resides in their backyard. We are required to register for selective service, pay federal and state taxes, while members of Congress are making decisions for us. We all need to understand the right to vote cannot be taken for granted, which starts with the right to have representation. And yes, many of our youth may think DC statehood does not affect us, but it absolutely does. Being a state could grant us control over our own budget, which would allow us to spend money on issues so prevalent in our state. More money could go into schools, we could receive federal aid, money could be put into anti-gun and weapon programs, and even mental health. There is so much that could be up to us. Recent history has shown the power our young people's voices have when united. We have the ability to change the trajectory of our nation, but in order to do that, we must come together and understand the importance of statehood and what it could mean for DC residents for generations to come. So, it is long past time that we call on members of Congress, President Biden, senators, rally and march, really push to help lawmakers understand that we have a right to a voice. We have a right to a vote in Senate and in Congress. Our youth have a right to a future, and we have a right to equality in our own country. There is no such thing as taxation without representation, and we will continue to fight it until we are heard by every politician and it is truly acted upon. Thank you.
Oh yeah, our future is in good hands. So, I chimed in on a conversation Addison was having with her friend who is a student at Spelman. And, they're talking about college. I'm telling her about my daughter who she didn't choose the real HU, but she's going to Hampton, my daughter, okay? I'm happy. She had the choice. But my husband went to Howard, I went to Howard. She's going to Hampton. It's okay. And so Addison had this conversation before the event started, the program started, and she's like, I'm trying to figure out if I'm going to be get my law degree first and then do politics, or should I do the politics law degree? I'm like, and then she said, I just don't want to be too old when I start the political thing. I think she has plenty of time, right? She's going to be just fine. We just heard her. She's going to be just fine. As of last Friday, April 7th, an exciting new exhibit opened in our city. It's titled DC Home Rule 50. Now, this exhibit marks the 50th anniversary of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, with contemporary images by emerging photographers representing American University, the University of the District of Columbia, and Howard University. It's mounted at the DC History Center, and we really want to encourage all of you to plan your visit. Today, we are very excited to give you a glimpse of this exhibit as a prelude to a live special presentation featuring Austin Farrow, Lucy Lawler, and Susanna Mendlow, written by Nolan Williams Jr., with music adapted from J.S. Bach, simply called Conditions.
The work of emancipation continues.
The work of emancipation continues. So when I think about home rule, what I think about is enfranchising almost 1 million people. The fact that right now, we can touch the Capitol, but we can't do anything in it. The United States Capitol is right here down the street, but there's just a disconnect. We're not allowed a seat at the table.
My piece is about taxation without representation, where I took the aspect of Lady Liberty and turned it on its head. The aspect of turning the flag on its side actually shows the inequality, because the flag is an equal sign, but it's also turned upside down so that you don't have that reflection of equality.
These 3 photos are all about congressional overreach. We should be able to determine the height of our own buildings. We should be able to determine our own criminal code. And we should be able to determine our own right to die laws. Due to congressional overreach, we don't have these rights.
So simply put, the work of emancipation continues.
The work of emancipation continues.
The work of emancipation continues.
I thought I was free until I realized that my freedom, my self-governance, came with conditions.
Conditions are a funny thing. They say you're almost, but not quite.
They say, make yourself at home. Oh, but just don't go into this room or that room, and especially
Stay out of my room.
Conditions are like fractions.
3/5, that is.
Defining personhood and worth.
Parameters and limitations.
And mandating servitude.
That's because those who define the conditions always ensure the conditions serve their best interests first and last.
So 50 years later, let's call home rule what it really is.
House rule. Where men who don't even live on this plantation get to rule and super rule over us.
Imposing upon our leaders what to think.
Daring our people to have an opinion.
Telling our women what to do with their bodies.
Defying the majority will of 700,000 strong.
From our needle programs to our housing regulations.
From our criminal code to our judicial system.
Conditioners have a way of feeding us scraps, then trying to convince us it tastes like candy.
Propagating their version of the truth.
From the height and sanctity of their rotunda lofts.
Then telling us no need to fact check.
You can trust our word. But we, the sons and daughters of warriors and activists.
We, the heirs of bridgers, builders, and dreamers.
We are more determined than ever to agitate and activate.
Until we actuate true emancipation.
True emancipation. Free from house rule.
Free from plantation politics.
Free from fractions and fractious agendas.
Free like Douglas to become a burgeoning new commonwealth.
Totalmente emancipado.
Fully emancipated from.
Fully emancipated from conditions. Now we go off. Now we go. There we go.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was a beautiful presentation. Let's give them another round of applause. Come on. Very nice. Austin, Lucy, Susanna, thank you so very much. Now we get to the meat and potatoes, so to speak, of the program, right? And before I formally introduce our mayor, I do want to just acknowledge Sharon Pratt, who's my sorority sister. Hi. Now let's get to the meat and potatoes of this conversation this afternoon, shall we? She has done what few politicians, yet alone black women political leaders, have been able to achieve. She has successfully won 3 terms as mayor of a major American city. That's big. And she has convened us for this gathering today to reflect, but also to press forward. This is our first gathering since COVID, right? Of this kind of event, right? This is a big deal. This conversation is a big deal. So let's bring on the meat and potatoes, and let's welcome the mayor, the Honorable Muriel Bowser.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As I walked up, thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, please have a seat. I was thinking whether I wanted to be meat or potatoes. And I am very pleased to welcome you. And let's give Millette Green a big round of applause for joining us, for always supporting the district, for supporting our nonprofits. I go to a number of lunches where she has volunteered her time to come and support DC issues, and I know we are all following her very early in the morning on NBC4. I want to acknowledge my predecessor, Mayor Sharon Pratt. Please give Mayor Pratt a big round of applause. There is no bigger defender of DC statehood as mayor and since being mayor as Sharon Pratt. I want to acknowledge our youth mayor, the lovely Addison Rose. Give Addison a big round of applause. She is representative of fantastic, talented children that call DC home, that do the right things, that challenge themselves, that go around our country representing Washington, D.C. We don't see enough of them on the news, but we know they are here. Stand up, Addison Rose, and be recognized as a representative of the young people. I also want to recognize another woman who is a leader for all of us across the district and who you heard from, at-large Council Member Christina Henderson. We want to thank you, Council Member, for your leadership and for your focus on women and families and health for all Washingtonians. To all the members of the council who have joined us, thank you. Attorney General Schwab, thank you for being here, and we look forward to your remarks shortly. To the Secretary, Kimberly Bassett, and her entire team for working on this event, but not just this event, Emancipation Day weekend. You heard from the rabbi and others what this occasion is about. It is about progress for sure, but it's also about recognizing how in Washington, D.C., enslaved people were first emancipated and how we have acknowledged that occasion since. But we acknowledge it with the full knowledge that we aren't totally free. And we're reminded of that especially now. And Washingtonians have lived more than 220 years without the representation that they deserve. And this year marks 50 years of home rule. It was just said it was house rule. Another famous Washingtonian called it home fool. And in those 50 years, even though our home rule has been limited, we have been able to achieve so much. Our population has crested 700,000 people. Those framers, all those years ago, never expected that 700,000 people will live here. Our economy has created 800,000 jobs. We have a record number of visitors coming to Washington, D.C. each and every year. They took a little pause, but if you drove down here, you know they're back, and we love to see them. We've driven down unemployment rates citywide with the biggest impacts in Wards 7 and 8. In fact, there's never been a time where more people have been working in Wards 7 and 8 across the district than right now. We've driven down family homelessness by 78%. We have the most students in DCPS since we started counting, no, not just DCPS, all of our public schools since OSSI started counting, making a citywide count. And we have achieved a AAA bond rating, and our finances and reserve are the envies of states and cities across America. So let's be clear about something. That's what we have achieved with one arm tied behind our backs. We need to let everybody know, and I tell it often, no matter who's in the White House and in Congress, our approach is the same. I tell them who we are, what we about, that we take care of ourselves, and they just need to leave us alone. We're not going to let anyone get in the way of that progress or take credit for it, and we're not going to settle for limited home rule. That is why the fight for statehood is so important. We can't take half steps or even baby steps, because anything short of having 2 senators who can vote, and we're grateful for our statehood delegation that includes Senator Paul Strauss and Michael Brown. Please give them a big round of applause. But they need the vote. We're grateful for our champion on the Hill, Eleanor Holmes Norton. Give her a big round of applause. But she needs a vote. Can you imagine all that Eleanor has brought back to the District of Columbia if she had a vote? What it could be like? And one thing that I am so very proud of over the last several years, as difficult as having to fight a bully in the White House can be, or bullies in the Congress will be, what it has shown America is the plight of Washingtonians. What we know is that most Americans, they think we're just like them. They don't think that people in America in the shadow of the Capitol are paying taxes and don't actually have a vote. They think we're just like them. They don't think that somebody could say we're going to take over your streets and deploy the National Guard. They don't think like that. They're going about their daily lives. So when the mayor has to fight the president or the council has to fight the Congress, then they know something's different. And it's not fair, and it's un-American. So we spend a lot of time talking to our national allies and gaining even more. And in the last several years, we have more senators who are co-sponsoring Senator Carpenter's bill for statehood for the District of Columbia. We have won the support of every Democrat in the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia congressional coalition, and that hasn't always been the case. We have even won the support of the business community in the Washington Post, who were kind of lukewarm for a long time. But what they know is that not having statehood hurts our progress. They know that having 6 senators for this region is better than having 4. And they know that it's only right and fair that people who do their part, more than their part, should participate in the full democracy that we're guaranteed by birth in the United States of America. And one such national ally that has been there with us through and through is Emily's List. And we know that they have been fighting to make sure our democracy is more perfect by helping to elect pro-choice Democratic women. I was proud some years ago when I was one of the first local officials not running for a federal office that Emily's List endorsed. And we know so well that they are in good hands because they chose their first woman of color and mom to be their president, and Miss LaFonza Butler. LaFonza is a champion for women in politics, for women in the workforce, and for women in all aspects of life. She's honed her political skills by working in the national labor movement, and she brings that fight to Emily's List. And when we look across our country, and you heard Millette say it earlier, that we know that the young people are going to fight and win these big fights, whether it is about women's reproductive freedom, fighting guns, getting common sense immigration reforms. We're counting on young people, both locally and nationally, to get the job done. So it brings me great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, the president of Emily's List, LaFonza Butler.
Good afternoon. None of us want to be following the speeches that have been delivered so far this afternoon, so I won't pretend to be as powerful as Mayor Bowser or our youth mayor, Addison Rose. And so I want to recognize both Mayor Bowser and appreciating her for this invitation to be here before you this afternoon. And I want to join in just the celebration of Ms. Rose as an incredibly accomplished representative for this city. I look forward to Emily's List one day endorsing you and supporting your election for public office. I want to also appreciate and recognize the other elected officials, a D.C. Secretary of State, the council members who are here, the fact that you do this event every single year, reminding all of us the important role that the district plays, not only in its local economy, but the important role that this fight plays for our country. It is particularly at a moment, at this moment and moments like these, when we are at a crossroads in our country, that events like this serve as great reminders of the choices that we have in front of us to demand, fight for, and make manifest for generations in front of us the fullness of democracy and what that means each and every day. So thank you all for the work that you have been doing, for all of you who are organizers and activists and donors. I just appreciate you so much for sticking with not only this event, but for sticking with what you, up for what you believe is just right for the District of Columbia and the more than 700,000 residents who call it home. I will, on purpose, be brief. I want to do a couple things this morning. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. The mayor gave a little bit of what my pathway has been to Emily's List. I want to talk to you a little bit about Emily's List, but I want to center, most importantly, your fight for full democracy alongside the fight for women in this country to demand to have the right to make decisions about their own bodies. And frankly, how those two things together are the fullest representation of true democracy that we have at stake in this country in this moment. As for me, I'm as you can tell, not native Washingtonian. I come from a small town in Mississippi. I graduated not from HU, but an HBCU, Jackson State University. And it really has been my life's work to make manifest the experience of having activists and organizers as your college professors. It's one of those real honors going to an HBCU to be on the campus and have the experience of having a professor who sat on the floor of the Democratic National Convention in 1964 when Fannie Lou Hamer led the Mississippi Freedom Caucus to loudly declare that she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. That was my professor at Jackson State University. And it is icons like that, and having those kinds of experiences and leaders who shaped for me the demand to join the labor movement 2 weeks after I finished my undergraduate degree at Jackson State. Recognizing that being a part of the labor movement was not an end, but a means to the end in pursuit of the thing we all call justice. It was standing together with men and women all across this country, workers who, just like you, were demanding a voice in their own lives, their lives at work, their right to collectively bargain and fight together for the kind of futures that they deserved. It was working with those men and women across the country that led me to be inspired enough to, at the time that I was probably in a career peak in the labor movement, I was the president of the largest union in the state of California, the president of the second largest union in this country, representing more than 400,000 home care and nursing home workers. It was at that time that I made the decision that I was going to put everything that I had on the line, Rabbi, to work on behalf of the presidential campaign of now our Vice President Kamala Harris. I put all of those things on the line because just this year, as we are celebrating the 50th year of home rule, we also are celebrating the 50th year that Shirley Chisholm ran for president in this country. The 50th year anniversary of her courage as a black woman from New York to declare for any major party that she was qualified to be president of the United States of America. And the lessons that I learned in that work really did bring me to Emily's List. Because I have an 8-year-old daughter. The mayor has seen her traipsing around at different events with me, and it is my 8-year-old daughter who said to me, in all the ways that you say to your children by your activism and your presence demanding full democracy for Washington, D.C., it was my 8-year-old daughter who said to me that she needed me to be doing every single day the work to demonstrate to her that she belonged anywhere she chose. Whether that was elected office, whether that was corporate America and the boardroom, whether it was in clean energy or technology, she deserved to be wherever she chose to be. And I needed to be, as the most important job I have as a parent, I needed to be waking up every single day making her dream possible. Just as you do to keep this fight for full democracy possible in the eyes of our young people and the next generation, and why we have leaders like Addison Rose. The way that I really think about, and I so appreciate this invitation to help me to galvanize the importance of your fight and our collective fight for full democracy for Washington, D.C., is the continued assault on the right of women to be able to make decisions about their own body in this country. You helped me in preparation for today's event think about how to contextualize and really bring together what it means to have the ability to make decisions about your own body, together with what it means to have and make decisions, to have the right to and to be able to make decisions about your own future as a city. And you have the gift of some incredibly powerful women who have been demonstrating that leadership and manifesting that great example in women like Mayor Bowser, in women like Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, who in 2012, when the Republican House Judiciary Committee debated a 20-week abortion ban with no exceptions, it was that all-male group who was debating it, that all-male group debating a 20-week abortion ban, who barred your champion, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, from speaking in the debate. That was just in 2012. That is the kind of example the powerful women in this district make when you are present. It was the demand for reproductive freedom that black women leaders in this district. I talked about Shirley Chisholm as she was a member of Congress, Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes Norton, DC's own, I think now native Washingtonian. You've probably given her the honorary presence, Donna Brazile, of being and you know, I think Congresswoman Maxine Waters, Dorothy Height, leaders like Loretta Ross. It was these women who declared in 1989 in a pamphlet that they put out called We Remember. In the pamphlet that they put out, they declared that choice is the essence of freedom. That is the work that you have been doing to demand the full democracy of Washington, D.C., that its residents have a choice in who their leaders are. Not just a choice, but those leaders have a full vote in the work that they are doing on behalf of this district and on this and in this city. It is so remarkable, the leadership that those women and all of you, how you come together in this moment to really be an example for the rest of the country. That long fights are still righteous fights. That sometimes we don't really win, we may not win in the moment that we expect, but we don't lose, it's just delayed victory. And so as an invited participant to this conversation, and someone who has just been back in the Washington, D.C. community for a year and a half, it is an inspiring fight to see all of you gathered in this room to watch and read the number of yard signs that are all across this city, no matter the quadrant, who are demanding full democracy and full representation, even alongside the yard sign that declares that a woman should have the right to make a decision about her own body, and that reproductive freedom is as essential as representational freedom, and that the two have to go together. And so, Mayor, I won't take the full 20 minutes to tell DC how great it is. I won't take the full 20 minutes that you allotted me to say thank you for being an example for the rest of the country. I won't take the full 20 minutes to tell you how proud I am to be on this stage as the first black woman, the first mother to lead the largest resource for women in politics in this country. I won't take the full 20 minutes. But I will take one more minute to encourage you to keep up the fight. I told you about my experience in California leading more than 400,000, mostly women of color, in their fight to pursue full freedom as workers in the world's 5th largest economy, the state of California. They remain the largest single workforce in the state of California. In 2016, they still did not have paid time off. They still earned $9.25 an hour. They still did not have health insurance, even though it was their job to go and provide care to the elderly and disabled in their homes to ensure that they were able to age in place and with dignity. They had been members of the union for more than 2 decades, Mayor, and they still had not accomplished full freedom. And it's the story of one of those members that I carry with me and that I leave you with today. Her name is Michelle Reed. Michelle Reed was a home care worker, but started her life, she was born in Oakland. I met her in Los Angeles. She was born in Oakland in the late 1960s, early 1970s. Her mother was sort of at the very tip of the spear of mental health, being a mental health advocate and social worker at the height of the crack epidemic in California. One day, Michelle's mother didn't come home. She has never been found. Now, they think that it was because of her work in this burgeoning field of case management at the height of one of our most violent and devastating public health pandemics prior to COVID, the crack epidemic. They think that it was because of her career choice and her relationship to this community of drug users that she disappeared. What her disappearance, the impact of her disappearance led Michelle herself down the road to substance abuse. It led Michelle down the road to addiction. It led her down the road to her children, 2 of her 3 children, being removed from her care and put in the foster care system. Now, I enter Michelle's life just as she has found her pathway to the union, where she is able to talk to other women who have had a similar life experience as hers, where she's able to find, Mayor Bowser, community and not shame, where she is able to find support and, Rabbi, dare I say, radical compassion, where she's able to find her voice in demanding what she deserves and, frankly, what she expects from her union. She expected her union to be able to fight for criminal justice reform and laws that would help her son get released from prison, who had been locked up because he had a mental illness. She expected her union to fight for common sense immigration reform because one of her daughters was fathered by an undocumented immigrant, and her relationship with her father had been broken because he had been deported. She expected her union to fight for clean energy and a clean environment because it was within her community in South Los Angeles that people felt like it was okay to bury battery acid in communities that were dominated by black and brown folks and families who people had disregarded and thrown away. And I still get text messages from Michelle Reed today. Michelle's latest text message to me was that she had just been appointed to the LA City Commission on women and children in the city. It was Michelle's text message to me just recently that said to me that her daughter, Maya, was not only had gotten her college undergraduate degree, but really thinks that she's prepared to now be a lawyer, Addison. She was never too old. It was the last text message to me that Michelle made it clear, made me aware of the fact that not only had her son been released from prison, but that he was actually pursuing his undergraduate degree in mathematics because his mental health disorder did not prevent him from being and accomplishing and maximizing all of the talents that had been poured into him. I offer you the story of Michelle Reed, her family, her experience, not to tell you a story about a woman from far away, but hopefully to ground you in a story of a woman who kept fighting for her freedom and the freedom of her family for as long as it took. And so, DC, as I leave the stage, and it is, again, an incredible honor to be here, I hope that you will carry the determination of Michelle Reed with you as you continue to fight for full democracy for this district. That for as long as it takes, you will be on the line, you will be the voices for this generation and for future generations to demand what this community has proven that it deserves. That you will stay on the battlefield in declaring unabashedly, as the mayor declared, I think, as one of the first mayors to declare and to make known in this city, but also gave other mayors the courage to do the same in her creation of the Black Lives Matter Plaza. That you will stand with her and everyone in this room to your right and to your left carrying that torch of unabashed arrogance for what this city deserves. And we will settle for nothing less than being the 51st state. We will settle for nothing less than being able to make decisions about our own body. We will settle for nothing less than our children being not less free, Rabbi, but more free than when we found it. Thank you all very much, and thank you for having me this afternoon.
fantastic tribute back down memory lane, showing some of the great people who have paved the way. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. Okay. We're almost done. Hang with us here. We have one more speaker who is our city's Attorney General, and he is here to issue a final call to action. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable Brian Schwalb.
Madam Mayor, Madam Youth Mayor, council members, Ms. Butler, my rabbi, friends, and Washingtonians, good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity as your Attorney General to share some thoughts about a call to action. Emancipation Day celebrates the fact that 161 years ago, Congress passed the Compensated Emancipation Act, federal legislation ending slavery here in the district. At the time, the Civil War had been raging for a year. There were more than 4 million enslaved people in our country. Less than 0.1% lived here in the district. But for those 3,000 people, those enslaved Washingtonians, many of whom's family members literally built the Capitol building in which the legislation was passed, that act of Congress profoundly changed their lives. The act also profoundly changed the course of history of our country. It served as a trial run for the Emancipation Proclamation, which President Lincoln gave 8 months later, freeing 3.5 million enslaved African Americans in the Confederate States. The Emancipation Proclamation was an executive order issued by a president during a time of war. But the Compensated Emancipation Act was an act of Congress. 161 years later, we Washingtonians don't need an Emancipation Day celebration to be reminded of how congressional action or inaction impacts people's lives. Is there anyone among us who is not impacted by Congress's failure to pass common sense gun control laws or reasonable comprehensive immigration reform? As we've witnessed our Supreme Court roll back fundamental constitutional rights and protections, do any of us need to be reminded how important Senate confirmation hearings and the people who conduct those Senate confirmation hearings are? And yet 161 years later, after Congress liberated 3,000 Washingtonians from slavery, more than 700,000 of us are still second-class citizens. I read an article recently that during the 2022 election cycle, $540 million was spent fighting over 2 Senate seats, Pennsylvania and Georgia. The American people know how valuable 2 seats in the Senate are. The American people saw how then Majority Leader Mitch McConnell manipulated the rules of the Senate to prevent a confirmation hearing on President Obama's nominee for the Supreme Court, and then changed the rules to accommodate the nominee of another president. We Washingtonians know how much immediate impact 2 seats in the Senate can have on people's lives, and there is no principled reason why the residents of the District of Columbia should be denied the same valuable right that all other American citizens have, namely 2 seats in the Senate filled by people who we elect to represent our interests. After all, we pay more than our fair share in taxes. It's not just the lack of statehood. It's just not that the lack of statehood deprives us of the same right to participate in our national representative democracy that all other Americans enjoy. Our lack of statehood allows members of Congress to interfere in our local affairs. Politicians from other states, not accountable to DC residents, not familiar with our neighborhoods, not invested in our dreams and aspirations. They don't know more or care more about what's right for Washington than we do. And yet they use us like a political football. meddling in our affairs, disregarding our laws, disrespecting our home rule, all in order to score points for their next hometown election. Let's be clear. This lack of respect is not a coincidence. It's consistent with a long history of disenfranchising predominantly black and brown communities from having a say on policies most important to their lives, from criminal justice and gun control, from economic opportunity and transportation, from housing to health care. Whether it's the power to call out our own National Guard in response to a violent insurrection in our city, or a right to use local tax dollars to invest in essential services, or the ability to seat enough judges on our Superior Court and Court of Appeals to allow timely access to justice, or revising an antiquated, internally inconsistent criminal code so that our criminal system can be more efficient, or passing a police reform bill that enhances community police relationships by, for example, banning chokeholds, requiring transparency, and allowing our chief to discipline officers who violate constitutional rights. Without statehood, Washingtonians are not able to address the issues that most impact our lives. So our call to action today is to fight for statehood, particularly at a time when some would seek to criminalize the study of history. We need to apply what history has taught us through a new lens, a lens that focuses every action we take on accelerating the day we become the 51st state. In the same way that LaFonza Butler and Emily's List take bold and strategic steps to get women elected, run, win, change the world, we must make the case for statehood to everyone who will listen, even to those who are not inclined to listen. As AG, I'm using every opportunity I have to do that, whether it's during a national press conference this week announcing the recent $15.2 million settlement with Juul, or in regional forums discussing wage theft and worker misclassification in the construction industry, or taking the Virginia Attorney General up on his expressed interest in improving public safety in our region. I make it a priority to talk about the importance of DC statehood. I want to express my gratitude to Mayor Bowser for inviting me to speak today. I thank you for your leadership. And when it comes to fighting for DC statehood, there is no daylight between us. I am proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. So on this 161st anniversary of Emancipation Day, during this 50th anniversary of Home Rule, let us renew our commitment to educating, advocating, and elevating the importance of statehood, and to fighting for our rights to share fully in the liberty and the equality that America promises for everybody. Thank you.
Our thanks to Attorney General Schwab for that last call to action there. Okay, so I have a couple of things to say. We at NBC4, we do Comcast Universal Impact Grants. So we give money to small nonprofits. And the deadline's coming up on the 21st, next week. And so if there are any people here from representing small nonprofits, not the big guys, the small guys, $225,000 in money, grant money, is out there. And a little birdie put a bug in my ear that not a lot of people are applying. So if you are representing a small nonprofit, any hands? Go to NBCWashington.com, search local impact grants or impact grants, and all the information on how to apply. Please, 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 please do not leave that money on the table. These guys got the money, go get it, okay? So I can do a story on you. Okay, I just had to get that out there. Thank you, Mayor, for reminding me, because, you know, this is what I do. Okay. A special thanks to Event DC for today's program, the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment, New Works Productions, Pat Tyson and Freed, our Civil War reenactors. It's not my handwriting. I'm trying to read. Okay. And Lee's Flowers. In fact, those pretty flower arrangements, you get to decide the one person who can take home the arrangement on your table. No fighting. No fighting. So here we are on behalf of our mayor and the beautiful city leadership that we have. We thank you for your attendance today. We thank you to all of those watching virtually. And now that we've spent this time together, we want to mobilize with renewed determination to keep fighting for, to keep defending our DC values. Okay. And I'll be on TV tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. and on Sunday at 6 a.m. You better tune in, okay? Support me. And here to motivate our forward march is the celebrated drumline of the Howard University Marching Bands. Have a wonderful afternoon.